going to a regional, the Milwaukee regional, that's going to be happening the weekend of June 18th and 19th, what would you do to actually make a team? Would you just pick a Pokemon that you like? How would you gather usage data? What would you do? So today I'm going to be showing you guys how I would build a team to deal with a specific meta that's developed. And again, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. It's not necessarily building anti-meta, but what it is analyzing all of the data and then kind of building something that works with your own playstyle, right? So to do that, we're going to have to go to a few websites, right? The first website is going to be Pokemon Showdown, obviously. And first website's going to be Pokemon Showdown, but that's not where we're going to be gathering our data. That's just going to be where we're putting in our team. And we're going to be building this team mostly in-game, but I want to show you guys how you can accurately gather data. And I think the first place to do that is going to be probably Victory Road is where I would say the best place to gather data is. And that's just because you can use Victory Road, you can use Nimbasa City Post, you can use like Limitless. You basically just need to look at any site that has the top cut teams from the most recent regionals and whatever season you're trying to build around. So you can see right here, we can look at like all the European and like North American and like Latin America and Oceania events that have happened this season. You can click on them. This is the one from Vancouver, the most recent regional. So the first thing that you would want to do is be very familiar with the teams that did well in like the top 16 of the last regional that you actually went to, or the last regional that actually happened. I think it's actually really, really important. So like this is respecting things like you know, obviously Zacians, Groudons, even Lunala, much more respectful than it used to be. And just keep this stuff in your mind when you're team building. So like if there's a pattern you can see, like for example, let's go just take a look at a different regional. Let's take a look at like Syracuse. That's the regional won by Emilio. So we saw like, you know, Zacian Shadow Rider won, but we saw like Ice Rider, like Ice Rider Palkia, Ice Rider Palkia, Ice Rider Palkia. And so this is a core that is definitely popular enough that you might want to see. And also depending on where you're going in the actual country or the part of the world, like for example, like this is the sort of stuff that was done well with players on the East Coast in the East Coast. The current regional I'm going to is in the Midwest, which means we might get one or two of these East Coast players, but maybe not all of them. So it's maybe not worth over preparing for something that did well in like a very specific region, but it's definitely worth keeping in mind when you actually like build for it. Yeah, Gloria Moltres won the Milan event. I saw that this morning right here. This is the team that won in Milan. And so like, again, I would not think that any of these players would be in a regional in the Midwest in the United States. So like, even though this sort of team might be copied by someone, you know, you just have to familiarize yourself with how, you know, how to deal with these matchup. And we're going to be calcing all this stuff throughout this stream today. So I'll show you guys how I'll deal with it. But you can kind of see tons of Zacian. So we have to definitely be packing respect for Zacian. And after you familiarize yourself with what cores are popular, the next thing you want to do is go to a site like Pikalytics or even Pokemon Home and just scout the usage stats of the popular Pokemon. If I were to click on Zacian, for example, here, it shows Zacian's base stats. It shows that it has a 59% usage rate in the ladder. It shows popular moves and the popularity ranking of those moves. So, like, for example, 100% of the Zacians you're going to fight have Behemoth Blade, and, you know, and 8% of them are going to have things like Quick Attack. It's also going to show Zacian's most popular teammates when paired with it. Makes sense to pair it with Incineroar, makes sense to pair it with Kyogre, makes sense to pair it with Thundurus, to you know, mitigate people leading with Intimidates and things like that. So it also shows like popular items and stuff like that. So I'd familiarize yourself with basically anything more than like a 5% usage rate. The second you start dipping down under 5%, those things just aren't very common. We'll probably go all the way down to Zapdos. So whenever you actually get your 6 and you want to start running calcs, and you're throwing things into the calculator, like let's say, for example, we're going to be building around our own Zacian, we would be plugging in every single Zacian calc we can possibly think of, both offensively and defensively, versus things like Incineroar, versus Zacian, versus Kyogre, versus Groudon, versus Grimmsnarl. And yes, we'd like to get 1-hit to 2-hit KOs on things, but we also want to make sure that we're not getting 1-hit or 2 KO'd back. So it's really, really important to, you know, get your calcs on point. When will this video be on YouTube? Whenever it gets up there. Right? Whenever it gets up there. But yeah, it's really important to make sure that your calcs are on point. And now that we've shown that you need to accurately gather resources by going to web pages and looking at popular teams, you need to gather correct usage stat data, which you can do on Pokemon Home or Victory Road. I think the next thing you want to actually do is just actually pick some Pokemon you want to build around. And I've actually been, I have some tips for how you can actually do that. You can go to places like Victory Road, right? Let's go back to Victory Road for just a second and see like popular teams that did well. And what I tell people on Patreon all the time is if you really can't think of what you want to run and you really don't know some Pokemon that you want to run, you should find some teams that maybe have some Pokemon that you like. Like, for example, someone was talking about this Moltres team. So you can take the 6 Pokemon there, and you can fuse this team. You can try your best to make a Franken team version of this Galarian Moltres Shedinja team, and maybe fuse it with, like, you know, this Ice Rider Calyrex Palkia team. So you maybe take like 1 or 2 aspects from each of them, maybe even fuse it with a 3rd team. And I think that's a really, really cool way to put your own spin on something that's already existing. Now, I'm not just saying take the exact Moltres set and the exact Cali Ice set and then throw them together, but you want to think about what each Pokemon can actually bring to the table in a situation where they're fused in the same team. So for example, instead of running whatever, probably like Life Orb, Citrus Berry, whatever Galarian Moltres this is, you might be able to run kind of how we ran Galarian Moltres in the past, where you put After You on it, give it a Choice Scarf so it can actually check things like Shadow Rider, which would keep Shadow Riders off of your Ice Riders, but also think about giving it like After You to enable something like our Ice Rider to be able to just go for huge After You boosted Glacial Lance and not actually need to set up Trick Room. So it's those combos that you can kind of think of fusing different aspects of different teams that have done well to make your opponent respect a meta that is kind of based around those Pokemon. Like, for example, there's a lot of people using Incineroar, Rillaboom, Grimmsnarl. Those are super, super common Pokemon. But there's so many different ways to use those Pokemon than the actual standard way that they're built. You could, all 3 of them can get Brick Break. They can get a wide variety of different status moves. You can rock Protecting. Using Protect on any of them completely changes how they're played. And I think like those slight changes to make them fit I'm not going to say a different spot into a team can actually be the sort of stuff that is really, really good at a regional that people don't necessarily think of. So again, I would say try fusing a couple teams. That's a really, really cool way to come up with a new way to play something in your own playstyle. So we're going to show you guys a couple teams that I'm going to be fusing to come up with my very, very base version of what I might be taking to Milwaukee in a couple weeks. So the first team that I want to be building around is a team that I used on YouTube pretty recently, and that team uses Butterfree. It was like a Butterfree Sableye team, so you basically paired Butterfree with like a Prankster user, and then you had just like really, really strong restricteds. I either had like a Cali Shadow or a Zacian, and I think that Butterfree is a Pokemon that can do very, very well at regionals. One of the reasons I like Butterfree is its Befuddle can completely change the game, and another thing that what you should be doing when you're building a team to go to an event, right? You should be building a team that can beat the 3 types of players that are popular at events. We talked about this kind of recently, to where the 3 people you're going to fight at events are people that you are better than, people that are the same skill level as you, and players that are better than you. Butterfree excels in all 3 of those categories. It can sleep powder people that just want to lead their Porygon and go for Trick Room and, might not be as good as you. People that are following a flowchart, Butterfree's great at disrupting that. Can also use Rage Powder to disrupt that stuff, Tailwind to disrupt that stuff. Heck, it even gets like Electro Web if you want to use like a Scarf set. So Butterfree's really good at pulling people out of their element and letting you play your own game at your own tempo. So it's great at helping beat players that you're better than. And Butterfree's also great at beating players that are roughly the same skill level, because again, it has such dynamic control of the board. It's almost similar to a Prankster user. It gets access to a relatively fast Rage Powder, a relatively accurate Sleep Powder boosted by Compound Eyes, which is almost a Spore. It gets access to Befuddle, and these are drastic game-changing moves that if any one of these go the way that you want, the whole game's going to flip. If you can put a Sleep, if you can put a Pair, if you can put a Poison, if you can redirect a move, if you can set a Tailwind, the game's going to drastically change in your favor through the use of that one turn, and it's all enabled by Butterfree. So I think that Butterfree is a really, really cool Pokemon, and if you pair it with the right Prankster users, in this team I'd use Sableye to go for like Quashes and Fake Outs and stuff like that. I think that you can actually put a lot of cool stuff together. So that's going to be the base idea, is I want to build a team around Butterfree. Oh, I also forgot to mention, Butterfree is great against players that, are better than you. If I'm fighting against like Wolfclicks, Aaron Zangs, people like that, I can just go for the big Befuddles, roll the double Dark Void, and that's always an option. And so that's always something that we can force people that are even better than us to respect. We can go for max guards. We can do so many different things. I think Butterfree's the perfect Pokemon to build around. So like I said, I think this is a really good core. This is going to be our core idea that we're going to be building around, is how to enable Butterfree to play to its fullest potential. And so I'm taking aspect of the Befuddle Magic team. The next team that I want to add is going to be a team that I used kind of recently that featured like Dialga Grim. Note that like it's still the same type of idea. Yes, it is still featuring a max mon. I think Dialga is probably one of the safest restricteds in the meta right now, and it paired it with Grimmsnarl. So Grimmsnarl had access to like Fake Out, Scary Face, Fake Tears, Foul Player, Spirit Break, stuff like that. And the Grimmsnarl was there to enable the Dialga to deal with things like Zacian, Shadow Rider, and just various different max mons, help deal with like Charizard and stuff like that. And so I want to take the two best aspects of these teams, which are two completely different polarizing leads that both feature prankster mons, and force my opponent to respect them both. I think also the things that beat like Dialga, like fighting and ground attacks, those don't do very good versus Butterfree. So I think that they're different enough to where I can build a team that features both of these aspects, fuse them together, add a couple different cool things that help me play the game the way I want it to, a little bit more proactively, a little bit more like dynamic control of the game using like abilities, moves, and things that have like an immediate effect on the game. And I can probably put together something that is very unique, not necessarily anti-meta, but forces people to respect the meta while also still being able to play standard if I have to. So I think this is the perfect idea for just flowcharting a team and seeing if I can actually get something together. And remember, when you're building a team, you do not need to build the world's best team on the first day. It's not required. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is build a team that you're comfortable with, and then after about a week or two of playing with it and making small tweaks at the end of every single session, that's when you're actually going to be able to fine-tune a team and turn it into something that's really nice. Like no one, Wolf Glick, Aaron Zhang, Sejun Park, no one just like wakes up and makes their regionals team. It takes a long, long time to actually do it, and this is what we're doing today is going to be like the very first step in trying to get that done. Dialga can also swap in on Electric and Rock attacks or Butterfree. It can, but I really think that like Dialga and Butterfree clash a little bit, just a little bit, because you're going to be maxing one of them. So like, I'd almost want to say that like, I think you'd have more value in like leading Dialga Butterfree in like a game 3 situation and forcing like a 50-50 mix-up after you've shown a max, each of them max. And so they have to guess which one's going to max in game 3, which is actually pretty cool. But yeah, so now that we know what two teams are going to be fusing together, what we want to get done, we can probably start adding the Pokemon. And so we're going to show you guys the Pokemon that I think we should work with, and then we're going to go to Showdown and talk about adding their sets. We're going to go into like Maryland, throw them in a team builder, and look at like their defensive and offensive typing and stuff like that. That's the next step in how I would build a team. So we can see right now in my game, I have a Butterfree here. I don't know what item I'm going to use on it. I don't know what moves I'm going to use on it. I know that I would like to use Butterfree. I think it's a very, very good Pokemon, and for all the reasons we already talked about. So Butterfree, big busted. Pheromosa for speed swap. No, I don't think we need Pheromosa. I do not think we need Pheromosa. I do think, though, that we need a Dialga. So let's go find a Dialga and just throw it in the team. And again, don't know what sort of Dialga we want. We don't have to lock ourselves into using a specific type of Pokemon. Like to using a specific type of Dialga. Right now, all we're looking at is just trying to get a good idea of like what variants of these Pokemon we want to run, and then we'll go into a Showdown team builder and actually work out our EVs. But I do think it's a good idea to just get an in-game representation of these Pokemon, just to familiarize ourselves with what we actually think they're going to do. So let me see, I have my list written down here. I think the next Pokemon that I should be running here, if you take a look at both these teams featured a Rillaboom to be able to take away terrain control, because we are going to be using Prankster Mons. But I think the upgraded version of this team definitely should use an Incineroar. And I know it's going to be, everyone's like, ugh, Incineroar, that's so boring, I hate Incineroar. I think Incineroar is like a necessary evil that we can also use to our huge advantage. I think something like a faster Incineroar might be really good in this team, being able to fake out and throat chop other Incineroars to make it so they can't use things like Snarl and Parting Shot back into our Dialga, which means we can actually use our Dialga's like first big turns of max to deal with the Incineroar's partners and kind of leave their other Incineroar high and dry. So I do like this. Like fast throat chop's very, very nice. I like it a lot. And I think Incineroar does bring a lot to the table. I think I'm going to show you guys my other restricted choice right now. Show you guys my other restricted choice if I can find it. This is where I'm going to deviate a little bit from how each of the teams were played. The Dialga team that I was using used Ho-Oh as its restricted. And I think the Butterfree team used like it used Zacian and Kyogre. So this is where we're going to be deviating, but this is where I think the team's going to start coming together with how you guys are seeing what it can do if I can actually find my mom. There it is. I'm going to use Cali Shadow. And I'm going to use all these Pokemon have super unique items and movesets, so it's not like very standard stuff. Air Balloon Instant is very bad because that can just get popped. Shuka would be way better, but we're not going to use Shuka either. The cool thing about Callie is Callie can unnerve using its Grim Nay ability to take away all the weird stuff that stops Dialga, right? So, for example, Dialga really, really likes hitting Incineroars with Earth Power, right? And so we can switch in our Callie to take away the Unnerve to guarantee we can take out their Incin. If we take out their Incin and we have a board that's like Callie Dialga on the board, we're in a great spot. And if we also like pivot correctly, we can make them basically go into the Dialga instead of going into whatever we would be switching out. So there's so many different cool things that Callie brings to the table. Callie's a lot more aggressive, but I do think that we're going to be using a very different Callie than how most people would play this Pokemon. I think one thing about this team is we want our opponents to respect what is very standard. Like if we go back here and we take a look back at this screen, like a Victory Road, like these standard things like that, we want our opponents to respect the standard versions of these Pokemon. We want them to respect the standard EV spreads, the standard items, and we're not going to be playing standard at all. We're going to be pulling a fast one out from our opponents and saying, hey, you better respect exactly what you think this does, and I'm going to show you something different. And you may be thinking, like, how can you show something different? The meta's so evolved. There's always ways to do something different. There's always ways to be different, and we're going to show you something else. So we got 2 more slots. I'm going to show you the next slot, just because I think it's a pretty good one. We're going to use Ditto. Yeah, we're going to use Ditto. And I think Ditto, this is where you're starting to see the real team come together. Yes, it can Trick Room. Yes, it has some speed control with like Butterfree and stuff like that. Yeah, THATSA is the king of this team doesn't do what you think. And I think one really cool thing about Ditto is it can really keep those Zacians and keep those Shadow Riders off of the rest of your team. The #1 perfect Pokemon to come with after you've like maxed Dialga or Butterfree for a couple turns to then regain board state is like a Choice Scarf, Imposter Ditto. You get to turn into your opponent's restricted. It acts like a third restricted, and that's the mon that like will then force switches. And if we know what we're forcing switches to and from, we can then switch in other mons in our other slots to be able to pin those Pokemon coming in, which again forces more switches. And the more that they're switching, the more that we're going to be able to punish those. Every single time your opponent gets a switch, that's a +1 free turn for you to do whatever you want. So I think Ditto, absolutely amazing Pokemon here. It also stops people from like setting up with like big weakness policy proc mons. It's so amazing. If you've never played Ditto in a best of 3, or have never like actually thought about what Ditto brings to the table in these formats, this is literally the Pokemon that can make the magic happen. Remember, we're talking about a team that we want to do 3 things. Beat players we're better than, right? And what's better than being just a version of my opponent's Pokemon with a +1.5 speed boost? That sounds pretty better. That's going to help us beat the noob teams that use other Callie Shadows and other Zacians and other Scarf Ogres and stuff like that. And Ditto's going to help us beat people that are our skill level. What's better than beating your peers? Being the same as your peers, but with a 1.5 speed. And what's better than beating people that are better than you? Well, copying the Pokemon that we allow them to get better than us with. Let them get a good board state, copy those Pokemon, sweep the game, they can deal with it. Ditto's one of those things that says like, oh, you're this strong? Well, anything you can do, I can do just a little bit better. So it really incentivizes players that are, the way to play against Ditto is to not have too much powerful board state at the same time and lock the specific move slots and sets. Like, for example, if you have like Groudon and Incineroar and you don't want them copying your Groudon, Groudon never really wants to target the Pokemon directly across from it, right? To get the KO so Ditto can't come in and copy it. Same thing goes for like Zacian. So it tunnels your opponent into actually playing very, very like one-dimensionally, which you can totally use in your own games. And for those guys that don't know how to use Ditto, this is going to be like a masterclass in Ditto over the next like 2 weeks going to this regional. Because there's so many different like lead options that you can use with Ditto just to scout your opponent's sets. You can see their move slots. And if you know their move slots, you probably know their item. You probably know their EVs, things like that. Ditto can do so many cool things. And it's going to be a pivotal part in this team. Now, the last slot in this team is where things get a little bit different. If you remember, I talked about the Butterfree team had a Sableye, which was its Prankster user. It had things like Quash Fake Out and some weird stuff. The Dialga team had a Grimmsnarl, another Fake Out user, but generally just there for like speed control. It has like Scary Face. Yes, it had access to like Fake Tears and other stuff like that. What if I told you that there was one Mon that we could add to this team that did a good enough job of being a Sableye, a good enough job of being a Grimmsnarl, but did the #1 thing that we would want a Pokemon to do, and that is to dissuade them meeting with Incineroar. You say this team needs a little more speed control / bulk. I agree. There's one Pokemon that does a really good job of that. It's a really good job, and this is you're gonna be like, whoa, when I show you guys what it is. Pikachu already knows what it is. Too smart for me. So yeah, I've been thinking about this for a while, and this is definitely something I've been keeping in my like back pocket. And that's gonna be Prankster Thunderous. Everyone's like, Defiant, Defiant, Defiant. It's like, nope, just Prankster. Just Prankster. I know I have one somewhere at least. So by adding the Thunderous to the mix, you gotta have a Prankster user, guys. Has to be Prankster. Whimsicott, too basic. Thunderous is the Pokemon. Yeah, he hasn't shown Mod Chat. You're just that good. Yeah, so Thunderous gives you the speed control with Scary Face. Thunderous can give you taunts that you wouldn't normally have, which is really, really nice. It can give like just a wide variety of different like support moves that you wouldn't normally be thinking of. But it can also like heavily help you support with the Butterfree or the Dialga. And again, they shouldn't think that they can just lead and sin against this thing. It also gets like access to Eerie Impulse, which I think is really, really good. If anyone who's ever played with Dialga knows that like unless you can just KO their Zard, it's going to be a problem. Unless you can just KO their Palkia, it's going to be a problem. You can just lead with Thunderous, like Eerie Impulse their Kyogre, Eerie Impulse their Palkia, Eerie Impulse their Shadow Rider, Eerie Impulse, so many things. Not Defiant Tornadus. We're not using Defiant. But yeah, I think that, yeah, they have to respect it. So we can organize our team preview something like, let's go back. We can organize the team preview something like this, you know, to where you get them to respect like the Thundy aspect of it just a little bit more. And they're like, oh, it's Cali Thundy. And Cali Thundy is like such an amazing board. It really disincentivizes Incin. They can still lead with it, but we're also going to have a board that like would heavily punish them leading with Incin too. Again, we can also just lead Ditto, copy their Incin, fake out their Incin, and the set that we're going to be running with our Cali can actually do a really good job of dealing with Incin as well. So I think this team has the potential to beat all three levels of players. People that we're better than, obviously we have a really, really aggressive team that can slow it down if it has to and play standard through the use of like Dialga. It beats players that are our peers because we're playing a lot more proactively than a lot of other teams. We're not necessarily all in, but we're forcing our opponent to respect a lot of options in the team preview where realistically we can do 5, 6, sometimes upwards of 10 different lead combinations. And against players that are better than us, no one wants to deal with the Ditto Butterfree Cali Shadow guy. No one wants to deal with that guy. Yes, this team only has one fake out user in Sim, but I do think it brings a lot of cool stuff to the table. This is also a really cool team in best of 3 because you can get your opponent to lose to the Thunderous in game 1. In game 2, they're going to over-respect it. They're going to be leading with that Incin. And if you do lead with that Incin, that's fine. I can just lead like Dialga Cali, we already talked about. I can just max Quake your Incin, and then you're like, oh, nice Incin, bro. What happened to it? Where'd it go? You know? There's a bunch of cool stuff. Person showing you the team preview already stressed. Yeah, and so I think that like you can heavily influence your opponent through like the course of the game just by picking the different mons that you want to pick. So from here on for the rest of the stream, we're gonna go into Pokemon Showdown and we're gonna build some EVs on all these Pokemon. We're gonna show you guys some EV spreads and we're gonna start doing some calcs and we're gonna get just a general basic idea of what we want these Pokemon to do. We're not gonna go super in depth today. We're gonna be doing that all week. Right, we're going to be slightly changing our EVs over the course of like the next 2 weeks. Because in reality, there is nothing wrong. I will tell you right now, there is nothing wrong with clicking that 252 button. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not optimal. It's not something you would take to a tournament. It's not something you would pay like thousands of dollars to go across the country or the world to go to a tournament with a few exceptions. Like Pokemon that hold Focus Sashes might be able to hold B252. Ditto can be a 252 mon. Cali Shadow can kind of get away with it. But on things like Thundy and Sin and Dialga, we want to mess with it a little bit. Yeah, we're definitely going to play some games today, but we're using very, very basic EV spreads that I'm familiar with, and we're just gonna try our best. So let's go take a look at Pokemon Showdown and start plugging this team in and start getting to work. And if you guys like this sort of content and you want to see more, think about letting me know. We're trying to get at least 1 sub a day, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna have to get some subs eventually because I'm gonna be gone for like 2 weeks. But let's start plugging this team into Showdown. So plug it into VGC 2022, and let's just plug the team in. Let's just do the Butterfree first. Let's go Butterfree, Cali, Thundy. Wrong Thundy, Lamau. And then we're gonna have Ditto. And then we're going to have Incin. And then the last mon was Dialga. And, you know, let's, like, fix the order. Because I did, like, the order that we actually had before. Awesome. Here we go. So, in terms of, like, what we want our EVs to do, I think before we even get into, like, heavily EV training mons, you know, I've talked about this in the past. I am a big fan of adding, like, all of your moves first before saying what items you want, before saying what EV spread you have to use. And that way you're giving yourself the potential to have, like, every kind of Pokemon, like, at the table. So, like, for example, if I was, like, going to say, all right, well, this is going to be a Sash Cali, that means that no other Pokemon can be Sash, and that means they're not going to be built with that Sash in mind. So I don't think you add items until after you get a general idea of what you want the Pokemon to do. Yo, Sizebot, give them a sub. Thank you so much. First sub of the day. Yo, appreciate it. Appreciate the sub gifts, helping us actually pay for regionals. Thank you so much. I like doing items moves first so you know what the team does. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you want to get a general idea. And just because we're working on Spectria first, or Calyrex Shadow first, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to fill all 4 moves. Like, obviously, we know we're going to have Astral Barrage on this thing, but we don't know if we're going to be running it with Sash. We don't know if we're going to be running it with Scarf. We don't know if we're going to be running it with, anything. We really don't know what we're going to do with this thing. So we don't have to add, like, a wide variety of stuff onto this Cali yet. So I think just knowing that we want Astral Barrage is probably fine for now before we actually start getting in and working on, like, calcs by looking at how we match against all these Pokemon. So just knowing that we want Astral for now is probably going to be okay. For Thundy, though, I know that we're going to want Scary Face. And I think that Scary Face is better than Thunder Wave on this team because we're going to be using, like, things like Butterfree and stuff like that. So I think that Scary Face is going to be good. I think that Eerie Impulse is going to be good. If I can spell it, I always misspell it. I do actually think that, like, Protector Sub could be really, really good on this guy, but I'm going to go with the Taunt for now. And I think I'm going to make the last move just Thunderbolt. Just super standard Thunderbolt, and we'll move on to that after we're done. Be sure to make sure to at least set this guy to Imposter and go to Transform. As for the Butterfree, right? Butterfree can do a few different things. Believe it or not, looking at this team, I actually don't think that we need Airstream. So I think that's a good thing to notice is when you need Airstream and when you don't. Because, like, what am I passing Speed Boost to if I'm maxing it? Dialga, that's not going to help that much. Calyrex, it's already fast. Thundy, it's a Prankster Mon. And Sin, that's fine. So I actually think it'd be better. It does get Electro Web. It does actually get it. But this isn't the sort of team that has, like, a Zacian or something that actually crave, or a Kyogre that would, like, crave speed control to be able to enable other Pokemon to function outside of the speed tier that they are already in. These Pokemon are kind of already locked into their speed tiers. Calyrex is already really fast. Dialga's already kind of too slow to function at a higher speed tier without a +2, and since there's no Tailwind setters, I'm not going to be pairing up Airstreams with Scary Faces. That's too combo based. So I actually think in this situation I can cut Hurricane for just raw Protect, which I think will be so, so good in an actual best of 3 tournament setting. After that, we're going to have Rage Powder, we're going to have Sleep Powder, and we're going to have Pollen Puff, which will turn into G-Max Befuddle, and can also be used to, like, help heal our teammates and stuff like that. So I think this is a really, really unique move set for Butterfree, and it's just good. It helps us, like, play around fake outs and stuff earlier on. And so when you're working on your flow chart, which is something when you're working on later on in the game, like working on what your lead options and stuff like that are, this Butterfree is going to bring a lot more to the table than you might actually think. Protect's also great at helping to lead out Trick Room turns and stuff like that. So very, very underrated part of this set. As for the Incineroar, we know that we're going to want Fake Out, right? We talked already about running Throat Chop. So we're going to run Throat Chop as well, if I can spell. Then we're going to have Flare Blitz here. And I know that we're going to be running an aggressive Incineroar, but we don't need to lock ourselves in a very specific item yet. There's something really cool I want to do with this Incineroar, and I can't wait to show you guys when we actually get to it. As for the Dialga, Dialga has a pretty... Oh, I put in Dialga Origin. No thanks. Regular Dialga, please. I think Dialga can actually do a bunch of really cool stuff, but this is the move set that you want to go with the Dialga. And you want Flash Cannon over Steel Beam. I've seen a lot of people talk about Steel Beam. You don't really need Steel Beam on a Dialga, in my opinion. And you still like the Roar Time just because it's a 150 base move, so it's actually going to be really, really nice. And so now that we have our Pokemon picked, we know most of what we want to do. We still don't know exactly what we want to do on this Calyrex, but we can kind of start thinking about maybe looking at locking in our items and our EVs. But the way to do that is to actually look at, like, your matchups against what are, like, the top 15, 20 Pokemon. I'm just going to ask you guys right now, should we do this now to where we go and we work out, like, every single calc for a lot of these Pokemon? Or should we do that in, like, a stream later on this week? Because I definitely think that's something to where that's, like, a fine-tuning aspect to where you're going to be taking some speed out, you're going to be taking some special attack out some, you're going to be moving all your stats around, and we're going to be calculating, like, for example, we would spend like 20 minutes on like just Regieleki calcs for even just like one of our Pokemon. I think you might need an entire stream to go that in depth. Okay, yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that when we have to do that then. So I guess I'll just continue going with how I was kind of going to build this. I will say, Turtles is right. This is going to be a Specs Cali. That's the idea behind the team. That's going to be the idea of the team. It's going to be Choice Specs Cali. So we'll save that for like tomorrow or something like that, where we go and break down all of our stats. And so because it's going to be Specs Cali, we can play it like a little bit differently than you would normally play this Pokemon. Specs Cali generally just uses Astral Barrage, and that's going to usually be about it. But we do want to have a couple different options in certain situations. I think that you still want Expanding Force on the off chance that they set terrain or you set your terrain or something like that. This is just a mix-up that you can use in case you have to hit something that is like a normal type like a Porygon, and you may be thinking like, oh man, you could use like a Psyshock instead. Psyshock's the same base power, and it's just not as good. I think Expanding Force is still better. It's not that you're going to be using it that often, but sometimes you also do need to set the Psychic terrain to make it so they can't like fake out your Ditto and stuff like that. So when you actually get Ditto to copy something perfectly, the number one thing that Ditto is weak against is like getting fake outed by stuff. So if you already are in a really good spot, like maybe you copy like a Zacian with the Ditto, have Calyrex come out, max it, set the max, like Psychic terrain, and then they can't fake out your Ditto, and your Ditto just sweeps the rest of the game. Yeah, Energy Ball or Leaf Storm. I think Leaf Storm is the next move that I like using here, just to be able to sometimes one-shot like Groudons and Kyogres, and then the last move that I like is Trick on these sort of Calyrex sets with the Choice Specs. I don't think there's a few situations sometimes where you can use the Trick as like a helping hand. And you can trick your Dialga or trick your Butterfree and go for a lot more damage in like a certain situation. This also like low-key helps you play against like Urshi Darks and stuff like that. So it gives you a move to use if you have to. I know some people like using like Snarl and stuff here. I don't think there's a problem with this. Just now realizing how much public speaking skill you've likely had to develop as a streamer. Yeah, I haven't taken a break yet, right? I've been literally live for like 41 minutes. This is all a single shot, you know? Believe it or not, I guess we'll do our first little break here. I actually have like a public speaking gig this week. On like Wednesday or Thursday, I have to do I have to give like a speech to a bunch of kids for an assembly. It's hard to explain, but it's kind of like it's for like a career day type thing, to where I have to explain like the ins and outs of being like an influencer content creator on YouTube and Twitch. I was asked to do it by somebody, and I have to like put together like an hour and a half presentation to where I just talk about, my story and learning how I became a streamer and all the different good and bad things about it. But it's weird, right? I've never actually taken any like public speaking courses or done anything with that. Believe it or not, I get like super nervous when I have to do that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's gonna be a long one. I'm not looking forward to it. I will agree. But yeah, it's gonna be crazy, right? Anyways, let's get back to this. So yeah, I think that Specs Cali is one of the mons that can really be used to like unlock the potential of this team. Because you may be thinking like, oh, this team's like cool, but you don't really have any damage, right? One really cool thing about this team is, believe it or not, we kind of do have the damage. If I can use Calyrex to come out mid-game, I very rarely am going to lead this Calyrex unless their team's super weak to it. But I would always save the Cali in the back, do a little bit of chip damage mid-game with things like Dialga, Thundy, Incineroar, just get things like 80%, and then you come out with that Cali, like when they're running out of max turns, or, their max just ended, or their speed control's a little bit over, and you just go, Astral, your Zacian's dead, your Incin can't switch in on it because we're Spexed. You know what? I think we're going to actually mess with the Cali just a little bit. I'm going to take this Leaf Storm off for Hyper Beam. And we're going to test that instead. So is it at a school? Yeah, it's at a school. It's going to be a lot of fun, though. So yeah, I think we're going to go with this for the Cali. I think saving Cali in the back is going to be really, really good. Because a lot of people over-respect Cali at the front, and they're going to be leading with things like Urshis and other weird stuff like that, which we can definitely kind of play around for the most part, but we'll get to that when we have to. As for the Thundy, I don't know exactly how I want to use the Thundy yet. I was thinking like Lefties is one of my favorite sets on Thundy, but Mental Herb might also be better to play against other Tauntmons. We definitely don't need to use anything spectacular. We don't need to go like Magnet. We don't need to go like there's so many things we don't really need. I think Citrus is also like kind of acceptable. Rocky Helmet's definitely there to stop people from fake outing, but in reality they shouldn't even think that they should bring in Sin versus it. So I don't know about Thundy. We'll get to that when we have to. Ditto's definitely having a choice scarf though. And the Butterfree is going to have a sash. Right? Butterfree is definitely going to be sashed. Mental Orb, I think Mental Orb might be what we end up going with on Thundy. I really think that might be it. But like I said, remember how I talked about we want to do just like a little bit of damage to most of the mon so Calyrex can come in and win? This might be one of those situations where Rocky Helmet, being able to switch in and block like a Behemoth Blade or like a Sacred Sword, and just take that damage on Thundy might be really, really good if we had that Rocky Helmet to be able to make them within range for the Calyrex to then finish off. So it's just my opinion. I'm also like a big fan of Rocky Helmet, so we'll just talk about that. Now, speaking of things that we're going to talk about, Incineroar. I already talked about the fact that I want to run like a speedy Incineroar. And when I say speedy, I'm going to be running like 108 speed. So, maybe even more. I was actually thinking like I was going to look at the value when I went into all my calcs of like maybe using an Incineroar that was like super speedy, like 252 type stuff. But let's just see. How much does 108 get us? And does it get us anything at like a +2, which would be pairing it with like, it'd be pairing it with like Scary Face. So this is 188, which means it can outspeed Zards. So if like I can go Thundy, drop the Zard speed, and then like Parting Shot against it, and that's actually really, really cool if I had to do those sort of things. So I like that. That's really, really cool. It also helps me outspeed other Incins. Now, there's one thing that I wanted to see what we could underspeed in Trick Room. Because there's an item on that I'm seeing a lot of people not utilize correctly on Incineroar. And someone was asking me about this item the other day. They were saying like, why don't I see people use this item? It's so good. And that item is a room service. And I think Incineroar can be really, really cool with a room service. We just got to find the exact number. We're almost there. We just got to see how much speed we actually have to take out and then how much speed we can actually still get away with running. So we would have to take out a lot of speed on the Incin. Right? Which means we couldn't run the fast one. But, you know, like realistically, like a room service Incin would be able to underspeed a Cali Ice. And so this is an Incineroar that can function fast enough. That's not Brave Cali? Ah, crap. Does that mean we can't even get it? That's sad. It was just an idea in my head. Yeah, it looks like we can't even probably get it then, right? Unless we wanted to take points out of speed on our Incin. Yeah, we'd have to be taking points out, right? So that means we'd only have like 20 IVs or something. Looks like 18, right? Or 16 or 17. There we go. What's the website I'm on? I'm on Pokemon Showdown right now. But like the thing about it is, I guess at this point we'd be running a slower Incin, which means we could actually cut the Throat Chop if we weren't going to use it. But like, doesn't this look like kind of sick? So this means Incin can function as a standard Incineroar, fake out, Parting Shot, Flare Blitz, do all those things. But then like also, we can use it to like pin Calis. We can let them get Trick Room up, and this will be the #1 check to like them once they actually get it up. So like, let's just plug in like Flare Blitz here and see how much damage we can do. We also didn't like go Brave, so like we could also like go like Brave, for example, and like not have to have 0 IV. Yeah, exactly. They're perfect. So we can like almost one-shot the Cali. That's like actually really cool. If we were to max it, bro, they like gonna be gone. You know, obviously they can max too. But you see what I mean? Like, that's a really, really cool way to potentially play Incin that a lot of people like aren't realistically thinking about. To where you can have it function outside of Trick Room and inside of Trick Room. There's a lot of other mons that are like big Trick Room mons too. So for example, like if I'm going with my Incin and I'm going up against like NDD, let's say like NDD Palkia or something like that, like think about all this stuff. If you underspeed Cali, you're gonna underspeed basically every other Trick Room mon. And in this Incin, after we get the room service proc, can be used to like waste one of their Trick Room terms while also dealing like status. So we can use the Incin. We could put like Snarl on it if we wanted to. They'll be able to Snarl those things immediately once Trick Room comes up to be able to waste their Trick Room terms. We can Parting Shot things like that. There's just so many cool things that you can do. We'd be able to underspeed the Porygons, right? We'd be able to underspeed Porygon. Porygon's base speed would be, I don't know. I just think it's a underutilized part of the game, right? Is that the best way to put it? I definitely think it's like underutilized. Porygon hits 65. Yeah, I think we'll just check it out. It's 60, so it's the same as Incin. But, like, we're going to beat them, but with -1. You know? So, like, there's no way they catch us. Yeah, it's the same. Like, it's... Porygon's faster than Cali. So, it's like, we're fine against, like, so many different things here. And being able to, like, underspeed those things can be the key, right? Because not only do we underspeed them, which means we can parting shot. We can parting shot to lower their stats to make sure they're not as big of a sweeper in Trick Room. And then we get to bring in something that mitigates the damage. We can bring in something that, like, for example, if we think they're going to go for a Max Quake, we can bring in, like, Thunderous or Butterfree. And, you know, we talked about using, like, Protect on Butterfree. We can use that to waste more turns. But then also, we can, like, bring back out our Incin and then, like, Fake Out to waste another Trick Room turn and get, like, a second Intimidate. Right? Willow Incin. I don't know how I feel about that one. I don't know how I feel about that. We'll see. I don't like Willow Incin. I'd actually rather just, like, I'm not gonna say I'd rather Burning Jealousy, but, like, we'll see. Like, there's so many different moves. Like, maybe even Brick Break would be value. I think there's definitely reasons for, like, Brick Break to be added, but we can definitely just think about that when we want to get, like, further along. So, like, the Incin set that we would need would be just a zero speed reduced. And obviously, we don't need to be full attack, but we should probably be an attack boosting nature. So the Incin set that we were looking at, we had it at 72. All right, cool. So that's fine. We just need to finish off the rest of that as we get to it. Let's see. What other move were people saying? Because I don't think we would want the Throat Chop at this point if we're going to go slow. I think that, like, slow Incin's actually kind of sick. You don't need the Taunt. You don't need, like, a T-Punch. Oh, you say Burning Jealousy? Yeah, I think Burning Jealousy is cool, but, like, since we're going to be so much slower than them, I don't know if it's necessarily the play. Let's see. EQ Lamau. Roar. I think Roar's okay, but, like, we don't need to stop Trick Room either. That's another thing. Is, like, we don't need to stop Trick Room. I think, like, actually, like, Protect is probably okay on it, too. Giga Chad Incin. I think there's actually arguments for, like, close combat in certain situations, too. Because you can just close combat other Incins, like, right in the kisser, like, right in the mouth. And a lot of people don't see that shit coming. So I think there's definitely arguments for that. The other option that we could do with this Incin, if we didn't want to go room service, is actually just a really, really standard one. Super, super standard, but instead of using a Shucka Berry, I would use Chople. And that would let us still have our Incin with, like, the 108 base speed. And then all we would have to do is make sure... This just improves our Zacian matchup, right? I think that, like, improving your Zacian matchup can be really, really important. So what I think I might do is, like, test the Chople one. Just because it makes it so, like, we can always just save the Incin in the back to be able to deal with the Zacian 1v1. And I think that's a really standard way to do it. But if we find ourselves, like, maybe wanting to use the room service, then we might be able to bust that out, you know, at whatever date would be required for that. So we're going to try our best with the Chople one for now. And Dialga. Now, a lot of people use the Life Orb Dialga, and I'm a big fan of the Life Orb Dialga, but I definitely think that we can change our Dialga. I want to use the actual, like, Dialga item, the, like, Adamantian Orb or whatever. I want to look at some calcs with it, you know? Adamant Orb. Like, I want to look at some calcs with Dialga, because I think the health chip from the Life Orb is too much. Right? I think it's too much. Let's look at, like, a Dialga. Let's actually give it, like, a 196. And just see what we can get away with. So we're going to go, like, Roar of Time. We're going to go Flash Cannon. And we're going to go Earth Power. So you can see something's not right. There's no way that shouldn't be doing that much. That should be doing way more against, like, oh, it's Dynamax. There we go. I was like, I'm like, why is it not dead? Yeah, so, like, a standard Incin set would be something like, you can actually see what standard Incin sets would be like if you went back to Picolytics. And you would see the most standard Incin set, something like a 236, 44. So 236, 76 is, like, the most, that's about as standard as you're going to get for, like, a bulky Incin. So 236, 76. Right? And you got to set it to, is that right? Yeah. So Max Quake. Yeah, Max Quake just not, let's see. Might be worth keeping in mind if we're going to be going fast. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think this Quake should be doing more damage, shouldn't it? Am I wrong? Shouldn't this Quake be doing more damage? I mean, like, the Life Orb would make it, like, crazy higher. I don't want to use the Life Orb. Yeah, it doesn't make it that much higher. And so the max warmer goes from 98 from 90. And so we have the percent chance to like still KO the Incin. I think being able to KO the Incin's nice. And they're usually careful. Yeah, you're right. Ugh. Because I don't want to run the Life Orb if I don't have to. You have Earthquake. That's what it is. Thank you. I was like, what the hell? Look at me. Professional. That's more like it. But, yeah, like... I still think I want my Wormwinds to be more, but, like, I don't want a 252 the Dialga. You know? You don't even really get that much out of it. I guess that I'm fine with, like, the 196 being a roll. It's like a 50%, right? 43 to get the Oko. But if you don't get the Oko, you basically just lose. You could slot Helping Hand somewhere in there, but I don't think that's a play. What I could do is talk about pairing this with Shadow Rider to where when you double up, it's okay. Or maybe after like fake out chip damage, or my Incin fake outs their Incin, this gets the KO. That's fair. I know that like the Quake though is normally you would put like the Life Orb here, right? And that's a KO like every time unless they're Shucka, right? But the problem with Dialga is like people switch out against Dialga, like switching out your Incin for Lando, you're dead, you know? Like you just waste your max turns. And so I want to try the Adamant Orb because it gives you a 1.2 boost. Like it gives you a 1.2 boost instead of 1.3, but only on Roar Time and Flash Cannon, which like are probably fine. The next thing we're going to calc is like Zacian. And just make sure that the Earth power that we do have is still enough to take out a Zacian. It's not really, you know? Let's see. So like a bulky Zacian like is just not dead. And like not KOing the Zacian is another reason why like I think we still probably have to go Life Orb then. I don't want to use Life Orb, you know? I've used a lot of Life Orb already. I guess we'll just use Life Orb. Like, it's looking like you kind of have to. That's fine. I'll use Life Orb. It was just a thought. Go back to Life Orb. And then for the Thundy, feel like you got around Life Orb if you want to beat Zacian, yeah. Time to bring Fake Tears back. I think Fake Tears is good, but we're going to be using Thundy instead. As with the Thundy, like, again, I haven't really thought about the item choice that I want on this guy. So we'll come back to it. But we got the rest of our items relatively figured out. One cool thing... Expert Belt, Lamau. It's the same calc, basically. I mean, no, Expert Belt only hits things that are like super effective, and like I don't think that's value actually. Neve dropping the sub, 20 months. Let's put some subs up. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Big subs up. I appreciate that, my friend. Hope you're having a great well, is it afternoon for you? It's almost. It's still morning. It's still the early morning, but thank you. I also want to nickname these guys. I'm going to nickname this, I'm going to nickname this one. We're going to nickname it Sasher and Scarfer to mess with people. And then there we got Sasher, Scarfer, Timer, Anger, Transformer. What was the one that I had for Incin? Danger. That's what it was. There we go. There we go. We got Sasher to make them think we're sashed and we're not. We got Anger, Transformer, Scarfer, Danger, Timer. Right? Name Ditto Deception. I think Transformer is good because it has to end in R. Right? Has to end in R. In ER. Those are great names. Yeah, obviously we're not going to be able to use our nicknames in the actual tournament. Yeah, we need an item on Thundurus. I don't know what I want yet, though. I really don't. It's probably Citrus. Citrus is probably the best item, but like Mental Orb's a lot safer too. But I don't think I need Mental Orb for the best of 3. I really don't. I think that like I can over tunnel with what I have now. Like people shouldn't be taunting a Thundy unless they know the set, right? And so I don't think I need the Mental Orb just yet. I don't think I need a Pinch Berry. I don't think I need like a Magnet, you know? Safety Goggles? Safety Goggles is probably the best item. Yeah, it's Safety or Lum. Ooh, yeah, I like Safety and Lum. Yeah, I like that. That's actually, this is one of the few times you're ever going to see me actually want to use this. Lum Thundy is really good, but I think Safety Goggles work well enough. Because I don't care if I get burned. Like, I really don't. And I want to be able to taunt a Cali if they go like Amoonguss Cali. Yeah. So I think Safety Goggles Thundy is gonna be really nice. So we got all of our mons, and now we can start working on getting them in game. And again, we don't even need to work on EV spreads yet. It's like not even important that we're working on EV spreads yet. We just want to get a general idea of what we want each mon to do. I think this is a cool looking team, and I think we can actually get a lot of wins with it if we play it correctly. And so I will say the next phase of like testing, we're just gonna go play it some games on the ladder, and like you do not need to win every game. It's not important that you win. It's not important that you lose. The only thing that's important is that you're actually gathering data from using the team. So if let's say we play with this team in 5 games, and remember, we're trying to make it look like we're using like Defiant Thundy, and they lead in Sin all 5 games, that means we did something wrong in the team building. Because like I don't think that they shouldn't bring in Sin. I think Sin's still a good mon for them to bring, but they shouldn't be leading with it, right? And again, if we lose all 5 games to people that lead in Sin, we then need to go back and like think about what we can change to have a better match versus Sin. It might be a little bit more of like over respecting in Sin as a lead option because it's something that we're baiting. Another thing that we might have like a bad match against is Screens. Another thing we might have a bad match against is like Scarf Ogre. There are definitely situations to where like we're gonna get countered by stuff, and so just by throwing ourselves into a ton of games, we're gonna be able to find out what our weaknesses are so we can fix them over the next 2 weeks. So it's really, really cool. And yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with just throwing yourself on the ladder and see what we can get done. So let's do that. All right. Secret to building good teams is to get out there and learn more from losses and wins. I agree. Yeah. What's the highest rank you've ever had on the ladder? Rank 1, numero uno. So let's see. Against Lecky, we'd have to like drop its speed with Thundy if we wanted to enable Calyrex to be a lead. Now, this team doesn't necessarily have the same sort of Calyrex checks. Like, it looks like their check to Calyrex is like their Lecky and their Calyrex, right? So that means, do we want to lead Calyrex against this? We could probably get away with it. Leading like Cali and Sin actually is still a good lead in my opinion. I actually think that we're going to lead with Ditto here, and we're going to put Ditto on the right to try and copy their Cali. And so we're going to lead like Ditto and in Sin. Is that correct? That seems really good, doesn't it? Or do I want to lead like Ditto Dialga? I don't know how I feel about that. Sorry, yeah, Ditto Dialga seems pretty nice too. I'll try that. So that means we go Dialga first, Ditto second. Ditto will be copying the Pokemon on the right. Think about what we're copying on the right. We'd be copying things like the Pokemon on the right-hand side is the Pokemon they select first, and the first 3 Pokemon, Cali, Zapdos, Regieleki, are all things we'd like to copy, so that's really, really good. And then in terms of what we need for the back, I think Incineroar's better than we probably think it is, just because it can help deal with that Cali late game. There's also nothing wrong with bringing Butterfree, so I guess I'll bring Butterfree just to test it, but we'll see how this goes. This is our first game with the team, playing against a pretty high-ranking player, and let's just see how it goes. I don't think there's ever a problem with like bringing your Sashmon. So Scatman says, learning a lot, also just super confused, woken up to competitive Pokemon. Just woken up to competitive Pokemon, last time playing on Game Boy Advance. Still super confused on Eevees and Ivy's natures. Yeah, it's hard. It's definitely hard. So let's see what they're leading with. Looks like they went Lecky on the right. So that's great, right? We can use the Ditto to scout with what they're doing. We can Volt Switch. We can do so many different cool things here. This might be a game where we think about Trick Rooming. I obviously wanted to copy their Cali, but like I think if you can break their Lecky Sash, we're in like a good spot. So Ditto copies the Lecky, so we can use this to understand what their set is, to see if it's like a spec set or maybe like a Life Orb set or something weird. We can also just max here. Yes, they can switch and zap. They don't have any fairy switches, so we can just go for a Roar Time into anything that we want here. So we're definitely just going to max there. I think realistically, we're going to be fine going with like, we want the Lecky off the board, I would say. And then it does have Protect, it does have Volt Switch. So what would we be Volt Switching in? We'd have to bring in our Butterfree. And I'm okay with that. Because then we just bring out our Cali. And we have to get a Speed Tie then. This is fine actually. So we actually want to go Wormwind there and Volt Switch there. Got it. Lucky Life Orb, probably. Life Orb or Magnet. If he wants to Protect, that's fine. He still loses the Sash on his Cali. I don't think Life Orb Lucky's best at all. That's my opinion. Cool. Max Lucky's fine. So this is going to be I think this is going to be okay, because we're still getting our Ditto out of here. If they protect Callie and take out our Lecky, that's fine. Why not TR? We don't want to get imprisoned. And we don't have to. We're using a Scarf Ditto. Like, we do, and a Scarf, and a Callie Shadow. Like, we don't want a Trick Room. We would just lose to, like, just because we have a Dialga doesn't mean we want a Trick Room there. I think Trick Room's really, really good, but I don't think we need to at all. And so this is going to break the Sash on the Callie, which is all we really need in my opinion. Yep, awesome. So Callie's just dead. Callie's just donezoed. Big crit that we don't even need, obviously. And I think the right play is just come in with Butterfree. Yes, we can soak the damage if they even want to go into it, but we also have a Sash, which means next turn we can just go Redirection. And which we basically get to elongate the Dialga's presence on the board. Maybe I'll buy Scarlet. Do you guys think competitive Pokemon will move from Sword and Shield to New Gen? I think it will. Awesome. And if you want to go for like a double attack here, that's also totally fine. You can get the Butterfree off the board. It doesn't really bother me at all. Imprison. See? Why didn't you Trick Room? Why didn't you use the Trick Room? Didn't you know you should have been on a Trick Room? And it's like, no. Nope. And I think the Wormwind there was a better play than going for a Max Quake, because we don't need to Max Quake in case they wanted to go for... Like, if they would have Volt switched or, like, Hard switched and got that Zapdos in, that would have been all bad. So we're playing pretty well so far. Took out a Restricted Mon at the cost of literally nothing. We still have our Scarf Donut in the back. They're running out of Max turns. We still have our Callie in the back. Like, I think we're in a good enough spot. There's the Zapdos. So, in this situation, I think you just go after the Lecky, right? Is there an issue with going, like, Rage Powder, get the Lecky off the board? Because then my next play would be bring out Callie. Ugh. I wonder how well Dialga eats the Zapdos attack. I'll try this. I don't think this is that, like, bad. If they want to go for like a Max Guard play and like a Close Combat or a Thunderous Kick, it also probably wouldn't KO. Max Lightning's fine. So I don't think Dialga will die to this. It could be like a Life Orb, because we didn't see Life Orb on the Lucky, right? So it could still be Life Orb Zap, and like that would do a lot. Like a lot. It would do like a lot. Like we'd almost die, but I don't think we're dead. Thunderous Kick, okay, well that's good. Yeah, like a Bandit or a Life Orb Close Combat would have done a shit ton of damage. So now, hopefully we just get the KO here, right? We don't know if this is the Sash or not. Cool, that's great. So all we have to do now is just bring out the Shadow Rider and we're good to go. Save the Ditto in the back in case we need to copy something like that, Zapdos or something. And, yeah, we can even Max Guard our Dialga for like one turn if we have to. We can even trick our Dialga Choice Scarf. Yeah, let's go Callie. Callie also turns off any like damage reduction berries these things might have. So there's Cure M. So in this situation, Dialga has a speed drop, but I think that's fine. Like, how much do I actually care about this? This is a good situation. Like, I don't think you can just KO the Zap. I don't think you want to switch anything. I don't think you want to go for a trick. I think that like just actually attacking with Callie is probably the right play. But the question is like, who are we attacking? I realistically think that Ditto is great against that Kyurem. So I actually think you want to double into the Zap slot to at least deal with that. Because I think they want to get the Callie off the board, right? I think you want to go after the Zap. I think you want to go after the Zap. Cool. Yeah, we're going to be fine. I think. I have no idea. Zap didn't die. It's also not orbed. Oh god, he's free shocking us. That's sick. I'm not even mad. That's freaking awesome. Yeah. Make a miss though, right? This will probably get the KO. I should have just switched. Okay. We're still not out of it, because we still have a Scarf Ditto in the back. But I probably should have just, like, protected there. Because, like, we're dead now. Yeah. Ugh. Maybe we lose them. Yeah, it's hard to say, right? We could have switched, or we could have done so many different things. I thought the Kali would do more. Maybe we should have just hit the zap, right? If we would have just hit the zap, we would have won. Now the question is, what slot do I want to put this on? I think you copy the zap in this situation. You have to send it on your left. Yeah. Yeah, you can't pick. You have to send it on the left. So that's fine. That's the best slot. So do you even have Protect? You do have it. I'm going to go after the zap slot. I think they're going to protect the Kyurem. I'm going to go after the zap. I should have just expanding forced. Okay, cool. So like I don't know if the Kyurem can Oko us. Was that speed drop critical? It didn't really matter. Our Dialga doesn't have like any speed. Fusion Bolt. Yeah, they got it. Hey, this guy played really well. And again, that was our first game with the team. And so Ditto's a hard Pokemon to play with. I think Ditto is a hard Pokemon to play with. What I should have done was like switch around just a little bit more, or I should have just over-respected the zap. You know what I mean? I should have just over-respected the zap, and just went for just a straight expanding force into it, get it off the board, and then, you know, let my Kali die, and then just send out Ditto, copy the Kyurem, and win the game. So we could have won that one, but again, it's those sort of games that like you want to understand what you need to be doing to win in the future. Ice Horse, the double horse rodeo here. Okay. Let's actually think about what I want to do against this. This is actually like a really unique board state. I don't hate Kali here. But I think they might be going with a Kali of their own. But like I could pin the Kali with my Kali. I don't hate Dialga here either. I think Dialga's a fine lead. Like if we were to go Dialga and Kali, that seems good, right? And if you were to lead Kali, I would just switch in my Sin. And then the last spot, see, this is where I think Ditto can kind of bite me in the ass if I copy the wrong Mon. You know what I mean? Whereas like Butterfree's probably always good. First Trick Room. I'll try the Butterfree instead of the Ditto. Butterfree instead of Ditto is like super greedy, by the way. But it's fine. They got a lot of horsepower, that's right. That is correct. Horsepower over 9,000. Wisconsin bits. Yo, we take those. I need it, man. I need the support. I'm gonna be gone for like 2 weeks. Gotta pay bills somehow. Awesome. So they did decide to go with the Kali, which is what I kind of expected. And we got our own Dialga Kali. So we're probably just gonna switch out our Kali and go for like Steel Spike. I think Steel Spike's probably the right thing since you have like all that physical attack in the back. Yeah, I'm just gonna switch in the Instant and then go. See, like Quake's also good too. You don't have any fires, right? Quake is good. I'm gonna actually Quake. Actually, I can just ignore that Kali all game basically, can't I? You're out of fairies, right? I'm actually just gonna Aurora time your Shadow Rider then. I don't think this gets that punished, because like, what are you doing? Sound Seek proc policy? I mean, go nuts, Chief! If it's policy, that means he has to tunnel into this slot, which means he doesn't lose it. Shadow Sneak one-shot yourself? Yeah, it might be. It might be. It's not. He would be maxing. So we'll see what happens here. I don't think there's that much wrong with this play. If you Trick Room, this is gonna make your Shadow Rider slower than all my Mons. Which means even if you want to bring in Palkia, like I'm fine. I'm a Dialga. Shadow Sneak proc policy? Shadow Sneak, oh yeah, that's right. See, Shadow Sneak into the Instant slot. That's value. Are you TRing or not? No TR, huh? That's fine. If you don't want to TR that, I'm not gonna make you. Ain't nobody stopping you from popping that TR, bro. Sash? Cool. That's the Sash. We can go to that slot again if we want. I don't need to break this disguise like anytime soon. I'll 4 blitz though. I'll save the instant on the board, I think. Do you copy busted? If it's busted, yeah, you do. So you're just gonna fodder that thing? It's fine. I thought about ignoring this and going into like the Mimikyu, but that's fine. I want the Shadow Rider gone so I can unlock my own. I want to see if they're Trick Rooming. I think they are. Yeah, so this can get a burn too, which is why I use this over Throat Chop. No burn. And trigger, right? Yeah, awesome. So, like, you could bring out your horse, but, like, we're fine. They shouldn't have a way to proc policy on horse. Yeah, that should be okay, right? So all we need to do is wait out a Trick Room. Or, like, bring in Butterfree or something like that. Butterfree can be really good here. If we KO the Mimikyu, they get to bring out Palkia, and I don't like that. So we're just going to Wyrmwind the Ice Horse. And we're going to switch in our Butterfree, I think. I know it sounds really weird, but being able to get out of a Quake range is really nice. To be able to reapply that Intimidate is really, really cool. Yeah, they're just going to switch into Palkia. I like that from them. That's a good play. So they're going to max this thing, and they shouldn't be going into the Butterfree slot with like a Ice attack. They should not be. They should either be going for a max Quake into the Dialga or a max Quake into the Incin. And if they go for the max Quake into the Incin slot, which is not Butterfree, I think we win the game. Because we just trick them, and then bring out our Shadow Rider. Got it. That's value, boys. Absolutely massive value. Wider? Okay. It's a good play. I should have probably went for that. No, I didn't want to Steel Spike because I didn't want to proc a policy. That's why I did that. So I got wider. What happens? But we can go for a Trick Room here, and we can just go for a Rage Powder here, and we're fine. I think that's better than like going for a Sleep Powder back into one of those guys. I guess I don't know if Roar Time would kill Palkia. I like the Trick Room aspect of this. Because we can always do that playing a Palkia next turn. Be funny if Palkia Trick Roomed, though. That'd be good for them. Quake blocked. Oh, block again. Spatial Rend, awesome. So Butterfree's actually still alive. That's so sick. The power of Rage Powder, boys and girls. I never even heard of it, and it's a Life Orb Palkia. Wow. I think -1 Dialga can KO Palkia, right? What do you guys think? Do you guys think do you think we can take that guy out, or should we just go for like the? Should we just Sleep Powder the Palkia, you think? Because that's the one that can trick him right now. I think that's probably the right play, and just let the horse do whatever, and then send out our Calyrex and be good. Yeah. No, I don't think... We're at -1. I don't think we get the KO guaranteed. I don't think there's anything wrong with just sleeping the only thing that can set Trick Room. You know what I mean? Like, imagine if we spored the Ice Rider. See, he's max guarding too. You know what I mean? It's like, see the value there? He also switched out. So he tried to block the Roar Time. So now we win. I like this play a lot more. Because yes, this Fodder-Zamon, but this also lets me bring in, like, potentially Fodder-Zamon. This lets me bring in my Shadow Rider and just win the game right there. Because it stops Trick Room and has a board where Shadow Rider wins the game. Now we just win. Cool. We do be taking those. Butterfree, boys. Never leave home without it. That's what we like to see.